Good morning, YouTubers. This is LA Prepper. Wow, look at all this cool bug out stuff. That guy has my hatchet! Or the hatchet I was going to buy. The expensive hatchet. Ooh, like that lever action, probably 30-30, 30-06. Okay, what are we talking about today? Today we're going to talk about bugging out. I'm going to touch on this subject just a little bit. Been thinking about it. Of course, it's something that's on a lot of preppers' minds, off and on. Do I bug out or do I bug in? And I think it's a very interesting concept, right? Now, we all know what evacuation is, but bugging out is a different thing. Bugging out is this idea that you're gonna, I guess the classic definition of bugging out is you're gonna take your stuff and leave your home or your domicile and never come back. You're gonna live out of your backpack or go to your bug out location or whatever it may be. But without rambling, let me get into, don't have a script, but I have a list here. A list that helped me make the survey, which there's going to be a link to the video. I have a short survey, 10-question survey on bugging out. Want to poll the audience and see what y'all think about bugging out. So, first topic on the list, location. Do you have a bug out location? Do you own property? If you own your bug out location, like who's our prepper in Tucson? Another angry overtaxed taxpayer, or another overtaxed taxpayer. Anyways, I know he goes up to a bug out property in Arizona, so that's that's a pretty legit classic bug out scenario. Your two options are you own something on the one hand. On the other hand, you're going to go bug out to maybe public land, or I don't know if you're planning on bugging out on private land, but at any rate, you have some location picked out. And I'm curious, do you have multiple locations? Do you just have the one location? Is one location enough? For example, I'm looking at property up in the mountains, which, presuming I could be mostly or completely self-sufficient. Let me turn this fan off. This thing makes stupid little house fan makes just endless amounts of noise, no matter what it's doing. Piece of garbage. But so if you're up in the mountains, unless you have a forest fire or something, your bug out location is going to be secure. I'm just curious, is there an ideal bug out location? I mean, everyone wants trees and some flat area and a creek and wildlife and things like that, but is a bug out location in the desert or a dry area worthless? If you can't get water. What if there's wildlife and trees but there's no water? What if you have wildlife and water but no foliage? What do you think about bug out locations? Should you plan on buying one? Should you move out there as soon as possible? If you can't afford a beautiful forest location, is it better to have some bug out property that's maybe near water and near trees if you can't afford the trees and water on your property? What do you think about that? So many things you could talk about in bug out locations, but I just want to develop this topic a little bit. I think in general, the conversation on bugging out focuses on a few things. One, do we bug out or do you not bug out? Two, where are you going to bug out to? Three, what's going to be there? And four, what are you going to bring with you? I think those are some key things, but I'm going to talk about a few other things here. So moving on to the second topic, transport. How are you going to get to your bug out location? Most people probably need to drive. If you're not already living at your bug out location, most people probably need to drive to their bug out location. If you're living in the city, unless your bug out location is 5 miles, a 5 mile hike away, you're going to need to drive there. Now, if you if you're trying to bug out in the next week or month before shit hits the fan, it's not really an issue. Go bug out to your property, put your stuff in your car, you're there, be bugged out, right? If you're trying to wait until kind of the last, maybe not the last second, but the last day, the last 24 hours, the last week, then you could have issues. If it's just a local evacuation, like we had some fires up in Ventura, there's going to be a little bit of traffic, but you're going to be able to drive your car. Yeah, it's going to take a few hours, but not every, and a bunch of gas stations going to be out of gas, but not every gas station is going to be out of gas. So, if you're bugging out before everyone, you're doing all right. If you're bugging out for a local disaster, you're doing okay. If you're trying to bug out after shit hits the fan, all the lights are out, everyone's trying to bug out at the same time, roads start getting impacted, you start having issues with your plan. So back to my original goal of this video, to look a little bit deeper into it. A lot of people think, okay, I'm going to bug out and put stuff in my car, boom, or I'm going to bug out on foot. I guess if you want to huff 20-30 miles or however far away your bug out location is, look, it's not impossible. You could hike. If you're moving light, you could go 20 miles in a day. If you got a little bit more stuff, 10-15 miles a day, depending on your fitness level. So you want to spend a week, hike 50 miles to your bug out location? Look, I'm not going to say it can't be done. It absolutely can be done. But is that part of your plan? Are you planning for that? So beyond the car, and by the way, what are you going to do when you bug out with your car? How much gas are you taking with you? Are you taking a bunch of stabilized gas with you? Are you just going to use your car as a method of transport to get to your bug out location? Then once you have it, you're not really going to use it. Because if we really are looking at a long-term shit hits the fan, battery's going to go dead unless you have solar to charge it or some other means of charging it. Your gas is going to go bad. You're going to run out of gas. So consider that even if your car is going to be used in your bug out situation initially, that long term probably is not going to be part of your bug out plan. And beyond that, if you have any issues with your car, what's your contingency plan? If you're just throwing a bunch of duffel bags in your car and you get halfway to your bug out location and the road is completely blocked and maybe there's some marauders or who knows what, and you have to go the rest of the way on foot, do you have a contingency plan to move 200 pounds or 300 pounds worth of duffel bags, presuming you're thinking ahead enough to have things in duffel bags and not just, thrown in the back of your car? How are you going to move all that stuff 20-30 miles? Do you have wagons? Do you have human-powered trailers? Do you have luggage with wheels on it that you can wagon up? Once you've put thousands of dollars of preps into your car, if you don't make it all the way there, what are you going to do? Are you going to leave your preps in your car? Are you going to drag them with you? What kind of contingency plans do you have? Even if you have multiple routes, you really can't guarantee. Most people probably can't guarantee that their route or multiple routes from their house to their bug out location are guaranteed going to be open. Most people. Maybe if you live next to a giant national forest and you're planning on using some off-road trails, maybe you're going to be in better shape. But like I mentioned in a video a few months ago, you're not the only one thinking about using off-road trails and taking your vehicle 4x4ing. There could potentially be options with that too. So transport logistic-wise, how flexible are you, right? Number 3, what are you bringing? Are you bugging out with a car full of stuff? Are you bugging out with multiple cars full of stuff? Are you just going to jump on your bicycle? Have you thought about what you're bugging out with? Does it depend on the situation? Are you just going to bug out with everything? Are you ready, in 10 minutes to throw everything, all your preps in your car? A lot of us aren't. I'm not. I'm doing all right. I could probably spend 10 or 20 minutes and get most of my preps in my car. I have a lot of my stuff in duffel bags. I have a couple duffel bags that I'm not using that I could kind of reposition my stuff. But have you thought about what you're bringing? Are you bringing everything? Do you have your stuff packed away? Like if you have a gun safe and you have, I don't know, 10 guns in your safe and 100 pounds of ammo, do you have a way to transport those? Are you going to throw them all in a duffel bag? Do you have an idea of what you're bringing if you're really going to bug out? Timing. Talk about timing. When are you going to bug out? Are you going to wait till everyone else is bugging out? Or are you trying to bug out before shit hits the fan and move out to the country and start homesteading? Personally, I think trying to leave at the last minute, I don't think is a good idea. Granted, things happen suddenly. In the case of a fire or a flood, you might have a day or so of warning if the fire's spreading, if the flooding's spreading. In the event of something more unplanned, like an EMP or a nuclear strike, you're not really going to have time to make a lot of decisions. Your quick decision is going to be hunker down in place or do I get out of here? And if traffic's already starting to get bad, I just wonder how reliable your bug out plan is going to be. Number 5, caches, supply caches. Do you or should you have your bug out location supplied? It definitely makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of excuse me, not wanting to drag your gear out there, but it seems a little risky because you're putting a lot of your eggs in one basket. I mean, I suppose it would be nice to have multiple bug out locations and multiple caches and supply caches on the way, but most of us budget preppers don't have money to be leaving all our preps here or there or scattered up in the mountains where we can't defend them. So, do I think survival caches can potentially have some use? Absolutely. I just don't know how reliable it's going to be depending on where your supply caches are for you to access them, right? I just don't know. You got to really think about that. Number 6. I can't tell what I wrote for number 6. Expendable. Examples, exemptions, exceptions. Experience. Okay. I think I was talking about experience. So what is your level of experience camping? Have you spent a day outdoors, a week outdoors? Backpacking and camping long term, whether it's car camping or out of a pack camping, it's a completely different way of life. And unless you're set up with enough food and water or a way to collect food and water, and this is where I kind of go back to how realistic is bugging out in general. If you're not skilled in trapping and hunting and you're trying to bug out to the mountains and you're going to bring a week or 2 of food with you, that's not a good plan. If you're going to bring a year's worth of food with you and learn how to trap and hunt in that year, maybe that's a better plan. But the bottom line is, if you're not much of a survivalist, you throw a bunch of stuff in your car, you get halfway to your bug out location, you have no way to bring your stuff with you, you end up trying to drag a couple duffel bags in your backpack, end up with a month of food in the wilderness with very limited survival skills. You're not setting yourself up for success, I don't feel like. which is why I go back to experience. People that have spent weeks and months outdoors understand that it's a difficult way to live. There's nothing easy about it. I mean, you don't have to check your emails. I guess that's easy, right? You don't have to worry about your social media presence, but survival takes energy, it takes experience, it takes skill, it takes resources. It takes resources. Not your own resources, but nature needs to have resources. Water, food, edibles, even firewood. You might think, oh, I'm in a forest, I got plenty of firewood, and you might for a while, but if all the trees in your forest are this big, you're going to be cutting down trees like this every month? Might be. Fitness, number 7. What's your fitness level? Do you hike? Do you hike with your pack? Do you train with it? If you had to carry, back to my duffel bag example, if you get stuck halfway to your bug out location and you got 30 pounds on your back and 20 pounds on each shoulder, so that's, let's say 25 pounds on each shoulder, so that's 50, that's 80 pounds. Are you going to be able to huff it with 80 pounds any sort of great distance? Maybe if you're just doing it to get to your bug out location, it's not a big deal. But if you're jumping over fences and crossing streams and climbing up very steep mountainous terrain, if you're bushwhacking, if there's not a trail, that's exhausting work. Even moving across terrain when it's not flat and even takes all the more calories. And when you're carrying a lot of gear with you, even more calories. So are you fit enough to bug out? Number 8, why are you bugging out? So there's obvious reasons, like if maybe your home was destroyed in a fire or an earthquake, or the water is rising and there's a flood, or there's civil unrest and there's gangs of roaming violence, and you can't defend your castle, so you figure, well, I'm just going to go to my bug out location because it's safer than dealing with the calamity that's outside my door right now. Given how much more difficult bugging out is now, most of this video is concerning people who don't have a secure bug out location with a bug out structure. If you have a cabin and a bug out location that you're ready to go to, you're probably doing all right. But if you don't have a cabin or you don't have a piece of land set aside, it better be a really good reason that you're going to leave your apartment or your house and bug out. Because life gets so much more difficult when you leave the security of your property. Even if there's chaos outside, now and then, even if you have, even if your gas and electricity doesn't work because an earthquake knocked it out, or there's an EMP and you have no power and you're thinking, well, how can I survive in my apartment? I'll do better off in the wilderness. I don't know about that. Bugging out sounds a lot easier than it would be in real life, and I don't think a lot of people realize how unrealistic it is to say, well, I'm just going to bug out. I'll bug out. I'll be fine no matter what happens. I have my pack. I have a car. I have a bicycle. I'm going to bug out. And if your planning stops at I'm going to bug out and then I'll figure out the rest later, escaping, I can just imagine, right? There's going to be all these people. Say there's an EMP or some reason where people need to bug out. There's going to be a group of people that bug out. They get 50 miles out of town. They don't have a bug out location. And they're sitting there thinking, great, now I'm bugged out. Now what? I have a month or two worth of food. I don't have a favorite bug out location. I have limited survival skills. Even if I have firearms, I may not have a ton of hunting experience, or maybe I didn't bug out where there's a lot of wildlife, or I bugged out somewhere where I thought no one else would be, and there's 100 cars just all milling around with all their stuff, Think about why you're bugging out. It really should be, given how rough life will probably be if you choose to bug out, better be a really good reason. Really good reason. Number 9, Has your view of bugging out changed over the years of prepping? Mine has a little bit. I still think there's value in the plan, in the idea of bugging out, because look, sometimes you just have to get out of the house. Sometimes you can't expect it, and I keep going back to the example of the Thomas Fire because that affected hundreds of thousands of people, and most people in Ventura did not have a bug out bag waiting for them in their car, in their apartment, that they could just grab. And it was the type of regional thing or local thing that there were still hotels that were open, there were still stores that were open. You could still bug out of Ventura and go grab some Jack in the Box in the city next over. So you weren't really bugging out for the apocalypse. But nevertheless, people who were prepared, who had their documents, who had a little bit of goods, if for some reason the power outage got so bad that all the gas stations didn't work and the power was off and the convenience stores didn't work because their credit card processing machines didn't work, if you had ability to cook a little bit of food and set up a tent and sleep in a park or whatever, you were doing all right. In general, my view is that bugging out is vastly misunderstood. It's fantasized about and talked about predominantly by people that don't have much camping experience, that haven't slept outdoors in inclement weather, and that have people, that have done mostly car camping. And admittedly, I've done mostly car camping myself. Just the way it has been. So how has your view changed on bugging out? Number 10, just kind of a hodgepodge. I can't remember what the survey said. Well, the survey said something, but if there's things that I didn't cover about bugging out, definitely let me know. I think it's a really interesting topic. I think it's one of those things like a bug out bag that is kind of a good idea in theory, but unless you take the idea to the next level and say, where am I bugging out to? Am I really going to survive? Is this a viable option, or is this kind of a worst case scenario? If I absolutely have nothing else I could possibly do to survive, then I'll bug out. Let me know what you think, YouTube. I'm really curious. Bugging out, I find this fascinating thing. I believe it exists more so in fantasy than in reality. And that's part of the reason I want to talk about it, because if any of us ever do need to bug out, hopefully we'll have done a little bit more planning and put a little bit more thought into it than the average prepper or survivalist. Until then, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.